Now, I am super excited by my next guest. Joining me on Isolation Interviews for Hospital Radio Reading and for my YouTube channel, we are joined by an icon from Neighbours, the amazing Annie Jones. Annie, how are you?
Hi, thank you. Very well. Hello.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you back on. And we were just saying, the last time we spoke was when you were doing the celebration tour. I mean, that obviously now being, I can't believe it was about nearly 2 years ago. What was that like to be a part of that amazing tour around the UK, getting to meet the fans? What was that like?
It was incredible. Gosh, I can't tell you how extraordinary it was. We kind of renamed it the Thank You Tour because at the time the show had ended and we didn't know if we were coming back or not. And then thanks to the fans, we did get to come back. And so yes, that tour was very much a thank you to everyone who supported us and who loved us. But it was fantastic. We were in a bus and we went everywhere. And it all depended on where the theatres were available at the time. So we didn't kind of go, like in a straight line all around the UK. We went all over the place, which was a hoot. Yeah, it was really great.
And did you get to go to anywhere that you maybe hadn't been before? Because I imagine you've been to the UK a number of times over the years, but was there
Yeah.
places you got to visit that you hadn't been before?
Oh yes, yes. We went to. I'd never not been to Brighton. Where else did we go? Oh, Scotland. A lot of the places in Scotland, and a lot of the places in Ireland as well that we visited. I think it was only Manchester that I'd been to previously. So yeah, it was all new to me.
Now let's go back because obviously, people know you. You're famous for being around in that 80s era. But when it got to 2018, and obviously you made your big comeback, for you, was Neighbours something you ever thought you would return to? Or was that kind of in the past and you thought we're sort of done with that? How did that all come about?
It's a funny thing, really. It feels like the top and tail of my career a bit because although I had done other things before Neighbours, that was kind of my major role. And then I went away and I did do quite a few other bits and pieces. In the meantime, my mother had Alzheimer's, so I took about a good 15 years off to care for her, um, which meant I still worked. I did a lot of voiceovers during that time, but I couldn't really commit to anything long term or anything out of the state and so on. And so when my darling mother passed away, it was me that got in touch with Jason Herbertson to say, hey, how do you feel about Jane popping back? And thankfully he was very keen on that. Um, and so yes, I popped in for a couple of guesties, and then I think it was about 2022 when I joined as a regular, and yeah, I've been here ever since, and got to go through COVID with the show, which was another extraordinary time, and then the show being cancelled and then being resurrected again. So yeah, it's been an amazing part of my life, and I'm very grateful and very very happy to be here, and I'm very glad that we're still making the show.
I mean, I know the fans love Jane, and she's just a fantastic character. And it sort of, at the time when she was brought back, I think a lot of people were sort of like, oh, great to see Jane back. But now it just makes so much sense having her back because she's obviously got her life there now. And I mean, for you, did it feel like coming home for Annie? Did it feel like coming home for you?
Yeah, very much so. Nothing much changes here. The building is kind of always the same. Technology has changed, of course. Our cameras are much smaller. The lighting is much better. We've got HD now, which, I'm not so happy about, but bring back analog, I say. And apart from that, the trees have really grown. That's the most extraordinary thing that you can really notice how much time has passed. But otherwise, yeah, it feels very much like home. It feels very comfortable and very welcoming place to work. So yeah,
And for you, it must be great because we're also getting to really know more about sort of Jane and her family have obviously now come in. Obviously, we've had Byron and Nicolette. We've obviously also had Vic appeared on the show and kind of is coming back. So, I
yeah.
mean, for you, getting to work with, these amazing actors and obviously kind of, the children being recast as well between the breaks, what's that been like to get to know Jane's sort of other life, as it were?
Yeah, it's wonderful. Jane is a very multifaceted kind of girl. we see her get frustrated and angry and a bit petulant sometimes, and other times she's charming and lovely. So that it's always a lot of fun to play different aspects of her personality. And so lucky that I've got wonderful new kids. The old kids had other things on, so they didn't come back. But yes, we've got wonderful Hannah and Xavier now playing Nicolette and Byron. So yeah, it's really exciting. Yeah, and of course Vic as well. So yes, stay
I'm
tuned there.
I imagine it must be a little bit exciting but strange to kind of have the kids come back with new faces. I mean, obviously you miss Charlotte and Joe, who obviously were on previously. You miss them, but it
Yes.
must be quite nice to see the characters in a different light, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, and also time has passed, and things happen in people's lives, and so they do change. They do learn, they do evolve. So yeah, superficially, it doesn't matter. It's what's in their heart that matters. And yeah, they are Nicolette and Byron, and Jane loves them very much.
Now let's go back to obviously when the show was coming to an end, and obviously you guys all found out the show was at that point ending, although we know it's come back. But for yourself, when you were getting to do those sort of last couple of weeks worth of episodes, did that feel very bizarre, kind of odd because of all the returning faces and just how mad it was in a great way? Did it kind of feel a bit like a different show for a while?
Um, no, look, not so much odd, not so much different. It was just sad. I felt really sad for the show and for all of the crew, all of the hundreds of people that work on our show, um, and all of the new people that get to come into the show and learn, and then move on to other fabulous things. So it would have left a huge hole in the Australian television industry and film industry, in fact, because people work on all sorts of different mediums. So yeah, there was a bit of sadness there, um, and gratitude. We were also thankful that we got to be a part of Neighbours, and then elation when we got to come back again. So yeah, well, a bit of a merry-go-round.
And it must have been quite nice because obviously you got to work again with people like Guy Pearce, Kylie and Jason obviously came back for a day.
Yeah.
So that must have been quite nice for you to kind of have some of your characters' sort of history come back for that final episode.
Yes, it was incredible. Yeah, it was all brief. 'Cause everyone's busy; they've got other things to do. But yeah, we were all very, very thankful that those guys got to come back and play for that final couple of episodes. Yeah, it was wonderful.
Now, obviously, let's jump forward to when the show is brought back, and the core four, we'll call them, obviously were involved in that sort of that teaser video to say the show was
Yeah.
coming back. At that point, d- were you always adamant that if you were asked back, you were going back, or was there ever a time you thought maybe you wouldn't go back? What was that like, that sort of period of time?
No, I think I was always hoping that they would want Jane back. So yes, all good.
And I mean, obviously, to then get back into the swing of things, was that kind of, I mean, because obviously at that point, I think the show, by the time it came back, you hadn't been recording for about 9 months or 10 months or something like that. So did it did it feel different when you came back, or was it very much just like putting on an old pair of shoes? What was that like?
Bedazzled old shoes because it kind of was all glitzy. It had had a refresh. A lot of the sets had been zhuzhed up a bit, fixed up a bit. We had a refresh with the crew as well. We've got a much more younger sort of demographic within the crew, and everyone is super keen and super eager and very thankful to have a full-time job. So the vibe is really exciting, and yeah, and also it's such an adrenaline rush working on this show because we work so darn hard. It's never ending. It's like constantly studying for an exam, and yeah, that's exciting. It's an exciting way to live your life. You're always studying, always reading new scripts. Um, so yeah, I think everyone's in a really good frame of mind.
And it must have been quite exciting to come back. Obviously, the 2 year time jump, and Jane's now running the school. Was that quite? Were you happy about that?
Yes, yeah, I love Jane running the school. Get to work with a lot of really great younger actors, and also we've got Irene Rising right next door to the school, so Jane gets to mix with Therese and Susan and whatever else is going on at Irene a fair bit as well. So it opens it up for a whole range of new storylines and older demographic actors too, which is fantastic. Yeah.
Now, I mean, over the last sort of couple of weeks, I've had the pleasure of speaking to Xavier and Hannah, and also I managed to get Craig on, who obviously plays
Did you?
Vic. They
Yeah.
were amazing to speak to, and Craig even sort of mentioned about how working with you was an honor because you would have sort of been a bit of a sort of a pin-up for him in his younger days. I
Oh my
mean,
gosh.
getting to obviously really find out kind of what makes Jane tick by meeting her ex-husband. That must be quite fun to do that. And I mean, without giving too much away, we know that he's coming back in a few weeks' time. So you must love doing those scenes with him and getting to do that sort of Harris family dynamic.
Yes. Yeah, we actually really clicked, Craig and I. We worked really well together. And we kind of had this thing of this familiarity, um, just little things that weren't in the script. But like if we're sitting down for a meal, Jane would go, "Oh, he's going to want mustard," because she knows he likes to have mustard with whatever he's eating. Just little things like that that we tried to put in, just to highlight that familiarity that two people who have known each other for a very long time, who have shared children together. Yeah, just that sense of history.
And I mean, obviously, going forward, we've seen the whole the dynamic where obviously they started to trust Victor, then he let the kids down. For you, when you're doing those scenes, you must because obviously Jane is a very protective, her kids are everything. Obviously, we've seen the sort of the drama between Nicolette and Aaron recently, but you must love getting to do those family scenes and also, having Sam, Henrietta, as well as part of the Harris sort of household now must be so much fun.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. Yes, we've got Henrietta who's popping in more and more these days, which is really good. I think Sam went on a little holiday for a while, but she's back again now, working at Lassiter's. Yeah, and just I love it. I love having the whole extended family, and of course Aaron as well. Jane considers him a part of their family. So yeah, it's great. And the kids, we get to work with little Isla, little Abigail, and they're amazing. Those kids, gosh, because they were tiny babies when they first started on the show, and so now they're kind of school age, and they kind of get it. They get that we're going to do a scene. Kind of doing their little acting thing. They're really cute.
I was going to say they seem really well behaved as well. They seem like bright futures ahead for those kids, whatever they decide to do,
Yeah,
whether they continue acting or not. Um,
yeah.
but obviously, with the recent dramas that have been going on, we obviously have seen Jane properly sort of get angry at Nicolette, and disappointment, I think, is more the word. Um,
Mm.
so when you're doing those scenes, they must be quite fun but tricky. And I mean, do you sort of have a discussion with, like, for example, Hannah, when you're going to do a scene like that of, I'm going to do this, and sort of how do you kind of get that argument just right?
Yeah. I don't know. I don't really like those scenes when I have to tell Nicolette off and stuff like that. But I guess Jane is at the end of her tether. She's oh, Nicolette yet again. She's done something terrible. But that's just the way it goes. There's always some kind of drama going on.
Now let's just briefly go back and obviously when the show first came back, because you got to do those amazing scenes with Guy Pearce. Obviously,
Oh
the
yeah.
fans were so excited to see Jane and Mike back together, and I mean, I believe you did a lot of those scenes in the UK before the tour, if that's not if I'm not mistaken there. So,
Yes.
what was that like to get to do those before anything else had been filmed?
Yeah, 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 that was amazing. Amazing is that word. Because I came to the UK a week before everybody else that we were going to meet to go on the tour together, and I had to keep it really quiet. I wasn't allowed to say anything to anybody. And Guy and I went with a very small crew to where did we go? I can't even think of what the name of the place was now. Um, hmm, Sorry, I can't think where it is,
That's
but it's
right.
somewhere
I
in the
think
country.
wasn't it somewhere in Surrey, I think.
Surrey, that's the one. Yes, yes, we went to Surrey, and shot it all there at a beautiful little old boutique hotel that was like a little mini castle. So yeah, that was great. So we had, I think, about 3 or 4 days of shooting we had like 16 scenes to do. Um, yeah, and that was really wonderful. Get to work with darling Guy again.
Did you when you knew the show was coming back, did you ever imagine that Guy would agree to come back, or were you quite surprised when he had agreed to come back for those sort of scenes?
I think we were just lucky that he had the time to fit us in. Really, he's a very busy man. He's always, I'm terrified to text him because I think, oh, he'll be in Antarctica or somewhere, and it'll be the middle of the night, because you just never know. He's always off doing different things. So yes, we're very lucky that he had the time and opportunity to come and play for a bit.
And when you know that someone like Guy is on the show, you know he's not going to be sticking around because he's so busy. So I think the fans were obviously disappointed when, when Jane and Mike split. But I kind of think the writing was on the wall a bit for that because they couldn't continue to have that long distance relationship because it's tough on both individuals involved. So for you, I
Yeah.
imagine you must have known that that relationship wasn't going to go on forever. So were you kind of excited to see what's going to happen now that that Jane is, flying solo again?
Yeah. Well, there's nothing wrong with being single either. I have many friends who very happily live a single life, and there's nothing wrong with that. So maybe Jane will be single for a bit. Who knows? Um, yeah, we'll just have to wait and see.
Now, one of the questions I do like to ask my guests, and I think this is quite an interesting question. So, if you were to meet Jane in real life, do you think you would be friends? Could you imagine getting on with her?
Yeah, we probably could, swap outfits. I reckon we'd be the same size shoe. Yeah, I reckon we would.
And I mean, if going forward you were given the opportunity to sort of decide a storyline for Jane, what would you like to see her do? What sort of things would you like to see her get up to?
Um, oh, I think I'd like Jane to hang out with Bouncer a bit more. I think that would be not Bouncer. What am I saying? Trevor.
Trevor.
Trevor. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just for that very reason, because Mrs. Mangle and Bouncer used to do a lot of stuff together. I think there's something in that, yeah, you never know.
And now that we know that obviously sort of Xavier's character Byron has sort of taken responsibility of Trevor now, they could always, they could always come over to the Harris
Yeah,
household. So
maybe.
yeah, potentially.
Yeah, yeah.
Now I just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. I mean, I could keep talking to you for hours. But I
Uh,
mean, just before we go, and obviously, we're not doing any spoilers or anything, but with the show going forward, you must be loving it at the moment, and I imagine you've got no plans to go anywhere. So for you, I imagine you just want the show to keep going and just to keep being amazing as it is because the show is doing so well at the moment.
yes, we'll hope so. Fingers crossed. I'm hoping that everyone still loves having us in their lounge rooms every day, and yeah, there's seemingly no reason for it to ever end again. So fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. And people need to keep watching Neighbours. It's here in the UK. It's drops 7 a.m. on Amazon Freevee, Monday to Thursday. Annie, it's been an absolute pleasure. You're welcome back anytime. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.